Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started. Let me switch over to my first slide here. Hey, hello everyone, and thanks again for joining another USA Technologies webinar, and really thank you for being here with us today. I'm Adrian Austin, Product Marketing Manager here at USAT, and today we're going to be talking about Office Copy Service, particularly how certain technology can boost profits and raise that bottom line. So before we get started, I wanted to give some basic guidelines for the webinar today. So you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a Go to Meeting questions box. So here you can list and post any questions you have for our speakers today. And at the end of the presentations, we'll take some time to go through and answer as many of these as we can. So we'll be collecting these questions throughout the whole presentation. So feel free to post questions at any time while we're talking. We'll catch them all at the end. So today's presentation is going to be presented by Bill Bartholic and Jane Yalkitman from USAT, and also our special guest, Duncan Smith, is going to be joining us here from All-Star Technologies. So let's start off by giving a few introductions for these speakers. So Bill is is going to be leading most of our discussion today. Bill's worked with a 20-plus career in convenience services, working in and managing all aspects of the business. Bill began his career in '93 while working in high school, working for a small regional operator. And then after graduating high school, he took on a full-time role and really helped to drive the company through strategic acquisitions and some technological advancements. So after a short stint working outside the industry, Bill decided to return and has been working with companies throughout the country on expanding their technological footprint through the use of USA Technologies Enterprise Platform. Today, Bill resides in Woodstock, Connecticut with his wife, Michelle, and son, Liam, daughter, Ellie, and two dogs, Curly and Maggie. Hey, Bill, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Adrian.
Next up is Jane. Jane's been a part of the Seeds product management team for over a year, with particular focus on enhancing our OCS product Seed delivery with new features based on what we're hearing from our operators. Jane holds a BS in industrial technology and a minor in UX design, and has spent the last 5 years in various tech companies, including eBay, helping to design and build software that customers can find easy to use. Jane's goal is to continue improving Seed delivery and help our existing customers grow their OCS business and make their experience with our software even better. Jane, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Adrian. Always a pleasure.
And finally, the man of the hour, Duncan Smith. So Duncan is the president and COO at All-Star Services, Inc., based in Port Huron, Michigan. All-Star is family owned and operated, and Duncan represents the third generation to work at that operation. Duncan has been with that company for 13 years after graduating from the University of Michigan with an undergraduate degree in economics and then going on for a master's degree in accounting. In 2008, Duncan led the early adoption of telemetry, dynamic scheduling, pre-kitting, and cashless payments all at All-Star. And he's continued to use technology to push All-Star to be an industry leader in efficiency. Duncan, thanks for helping to present with us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
I also wanted to give a quick overview of All-Star Services as a company. So the company was founded in the early 60s, like I said, in Port Huron, Michigan. And All-Star currently operates with 75 employees, 20 route servicing, vending, and OCS locations, with 2,000 vending machines, 75 markets, and over 400 OCS locations, which they are continuing to expand going forward. Okay, I'm going to give a quick overview of everything we're going to be talking about today, and then I'll stop talking and hand it over to Bill so we can start talking about the good stuff. So we'll start by going over some of the challenges that we see operators that are running into, whether they're setting up or continue to manage their OCS businesses. And from there, we'll dive right into the tips of what we're recommending to boost profits, particularly by utilizing technology. And then Jane will take us through an expert demo of our OCS software, Seed delivery. And at the end, we'll wrap up the presentation with some key takeaways we think are really useful, and then open up the floor to some Q&A. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bill to take over for me. So let me just give you presenter control, and then you can take it away.
Thanks, Adrian. I really appreciate it. Let's get this rolling here, and we'll get going.
All right, you're all set. Oh, just a second, Bill. I made you presenter. I made to give you control. Go. And all right,
Perfect.
now you're all set.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Adrian. Thanks for having me. Everyone who's listening, I'm really excited to be here today to talk about our OCS platform. Obviously, before we get into how we're going to drive more profits, which is the fun stuff, we want to look at the challenges. And let me see how this is going here. Okay. So first challenge we look at for some current OCS operators and what they're doing today, right? Paper invoices. Paper invoices are from a bygone era, okay? When you have a stack of paper invoices and you put them in your filing cabinet, at the end of the day, maybe they stay in your filing cabinet, right? You can lose them. You may not get paid in a timely manner. There's a better way to do it today. Secondly, we're looking at these bulky handhelds. And I was an operator for many years, and I had some of these bulky handhelds, and I couldn't believe I had them when I had them, which was 10 to 12 years ago. And today they should be gone. Really, some of the issues with handhelds are, they're expensive, right? That's first key, right? That's always hard to drive profitability when you're trying to buy expensive handhelds. I mean, they break easily, right? People drop them. They get that stylus pen that breaks, and really, they're hard to train your employees on because your employees aren't used to using these. Right, they're used to using smartphones today. They're used to using apps. They're not used to using these handhelds. Thirdly, on-prem servers. Okay, on-prem servers are a great way for people to use software in the 90s, right? But today there's a better way to do it. You can use cloud-hosted software. So it's really from a bygone era, right? They can be slow, right? If you have a lot of information on it, can be slow. Updates can be extremely painful, and there are better solutions out there. Now, what's the real key to this, right? The key is getting orders, right? To then pick those orders or to bring those orders to your customers and to actually get paid for those orders, right? That's the key. So if taking the orders is cumbersome with your current software, that's an issue, right? If it doesn't fit into your scheduling system or your picking system, it can really create havoc for your business. And then lastly, manage the vending, scheduling, and reporting separately. Okay, so what we're saying there is that when you're running all these different lines of business and convenience services, you're doing your vending machines, you're doing your micro markets, you're doing your OCS, regular OCS delivery business, plus maybe water hybrid business. You're doing all these businesses and you're running actually one business, right? So when you're looking at reporting and you have all separate reports for these this one business, it doesn't make any sense. When you got to go to Excel to bring all these reports together, it's just very cumbersome, right? So the key would be to have that, done with your software system. So as you look at these 5, main key OCS challenges, what we want to bring you to is, we're just seeing you're using outdated technology. A lot of OCS management tools are outdated, okay? That's an issue. You're looking at paper, you're looking at bulky handhelds, you're using servers possibly. Your systems aren't combinable. That's an issue. I hear that from many vending operators throughout the country that they can't combine and look at their systems all in one platform. I love the late 90s. I love the early 2000s, but we're almost in 2020, and I assure you there is a better way. Okay, so here's what we want to look at now. We want to look at the fun stuff, right? How do we drive more profit? Give me some tips, Bill, to make us more money. That's the key, right? And how do you drive profits? You either drive profits by saving money or making more money, right? So we're going to look at a few of these ways here. I'm going to bring Duncan in to speak on a lot of this as well because he uses the system, he uses the software platform on a daily basis. But let's look at the first one here. Getting paid faster, right? That's the key, right? So how do you get paid faster? Well, you get paid faster by using paperless invoicing, okay? So when you have assigned, when you go to a location and you have them, sign the app or sign the mobile app, they get the actual invoice right away. It can be sent to, one person in the organization. It can be sent to multiple people in the organization. Really what we're doing is we're taking out that, either the paper copy that has the carbon copy that you take one and they take one, or you're talking something a little different, right? Something that, you get the invoice automatically. And again, we're talking about not dealing with a physical file, right? So when you actually have that signed record, it's in a virtual filing cabinet, right? So forever, that record's there. You can easily access it on your software platform. That's the key to getting paid. Duncan, do you have any input on that, from what All Star Services does as an organization, how they utilize paperless invoicing?
It's really become a very easy system for us, and we've kind of marketed ourselves as a technology company, and to be able to go out in the field and have our team deliver product, have our customers, clients sign on an iPad or iPhone or tablet of some kind, just kind of shows that we're embracing technology and we are what we're marketing to our clients. On top of that, it really helps us to keep ourselves organized. We all know that clients can lose invoices and say they didn't get an invoice or they're having problems finding it. We can resend an invoice within a few clicks of the mouse because we have them all filed electronically and they're in our database. So it's really helped us to kind of shore up our accounts receivable process and helps us to make sure that we keep our customers organized as well.
Did you live in the day? You ran the company in the day of the paper invoice, correct? I mean, you were dealing with that back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, it's still a backup plan, but we hate using them because drivers lose invoices, customers lose invoices, and that's how we're supposed to get paid, is based on the invoice and what we left. So it really helps to kind of clean up and control that issue.
Interesting. Okay. So another way of getting paid faster, right? We're going to look at, how we're going to do this. Can we incentivize our customers to pay quicker? And then maybe have alerts that we can set up that helps our, AP team figure out how to get paid quicker, right? So our AR team. So you can create aging reports to stay on top of AR. So with that, what you want to look at, you want to make sure you have a system where you can easily, look at a 30, 60, 90-day schedule, and you can see who owes the money, who's over 30, who's over 60, who's over 90, right? How much do they owe? Can you sort it easily? Can you look at it quickly? Things like this to really make your staff have the ability to contact customers to get paid quicker, right? Obviously, you can provide incentives for early payment. That's always key. What is that? 2% net, pay in 15 days or something like that. That's something you want your software platform to provide. And then also you can set alerts for undelivered invoices, right? So what that means is, so for example, you send the invoice automatically, through the app to your customer, but maybe the person who was your point of contact is no longer there, so their email address is invalid, right? So when we look at that, the invoice never got there. So you can set alerts that you can look at the invoice, it'll say never been, not delivered or whatever it says. You want to make sure your platform has that abilities. So Duncan, do you use the agent reports at all to look at your AR? How do you guys do that at All-Star?
We do. We run, monthly aging reports, and what's really helped us to kind of clean up and reduce our aging and delinquent receivables is that the person that does our scheduling in Seed has access to all the accounts receivable reports as well. So she keeps an eye on those as she's scheduling and reminds our clients and customers that, hey, you're due on this, or missed this invoice, can I resend it? Here's your reminder. And having that information all in one place at the person's fingertips that really controls it, and not in a separate accounting software, does really help for us to keep our accounts receivable number down.
All right, so I'll ask the $1 million question. Using a software system, that's cloud-based to manage your delivery or your OCS platform, I mean, do you believe it does get you paid faster? Is that something that really helps with payments for sure?
I think it does. I mean, for us, we saw a 20% reduction in outstanding AR, and I think it was solely on the fact that we had all the information in front of the people that needed it, and we weren't exchanging reports back and forth between people and having to ask for information. It was all right there in one database. Awesome.
All right, thanks, Duncan. All right, let's get to the next one here, and let's look at our next tip to make some more money for your company. All right, so consolidate invoices, right? So we're looking at here, and I'm actually going to let Duncan probably speak about this more than I do, but this is for roll-up invoices for multiple deliveries to a single location. So what we're talking about here is you want to make sure that all your different invoicing that you're doing at one location, maybe you're sending deliveries on, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all through the location, and they want one invoice at the end of the month for their full line of OCS business, that you want to make sure your software platform can handle that. And actually, this is one of our, our company's newest updates. This rolled out over the last several months, and it was something that our customers want. And And maybe somebody that this phone call on this phone call actually had some thoughts about and how they ran their business. Duncan, you have any input on roll-up invoices?
You know, we were getting a lot of requests for, you know, like you mentioned, Bill, one invoice at the end of the month, and we have a lot of clients where we'll do, you know, multiple sites. So we're managing, you know, the totals or the multiple invoices in Excel, manually calculating them and then sending them something at the end of the month. Or we have a customer that has multiple types of services where we're, you know, charging rent on a water cooler, charging rent on a piece of equipment, selling coffee, water, all these things, and they want one invoice. And what roll-up invoicing does allows us to do all these things for these customers and then send them one invoice at the end of the month versus tracking it on our own, which it helps save a lot of time for us, a lot of manual labor.
Yeah, see, I'd like to reiterate that point that Duncan just came up with, because I really think that's a real important thing when we look at this roll-up invoices. You know, when you're running your OCS business, there's many different ways you can do it, right? So you can do water rental, like you said. You can do you're doing bottle service. You're doing, you know, pick to order, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of things you can do it, and this way we can run it all on one invoice at the end of the month. I think that's really powerful for an operator to use. Does that make sense, Duncan? Like you said, I mean, I want to make sure is that one of the biggest pieces for roll-up?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so we were getting a lot of requests for, hey, we don't want an invoice every time you drop a case of coffee or every time there's a rental or whatever. We want one invoice, pay off a one invoice end of the month, and we want it all in one spot. So it really helped a lot for us to kind of shore up that piece of our business and make us more efficient.
Very good. All right. So what do we got next? How else can we make a little bit more money here? How can we do something for ourselves? Utilize Handhelds efficiently. Okay. So again, I spoke about this at the beginning when I did the overview, and it's making the switch to an app-based handheld, right? So, you know, when you're talking about some of these legacy handheld devices, they're expensive, right? There's cheaper devices out there. Like I said, your customers all use smartphones. Most of them not your customers, your employees all use smartphones. Most of them are probably using Apple products and iOS devices. So that's something that is easily trainable for your employees, right? So you can send an e-invoice from your app. You can sign with your finger. One app for all business verticals. So what we're talking about there, sign with your finger feature means you're at the location. Instead of having to sign on an invoice, they can just sign on the phone or sign on the iPad or the iPod Touch. One app for all business verticals, so they can actually do vending, they can do micro markets, and they can do OCS all through the one app. So you want to make sure you have a software provider that actually does that. Duncan, what's your experience here? I'm looking here, the app-based handheld with e-invoices. How is that going for you?
You know, we love it. I mean, like I said, because of the fact that, you know, we have kind of tried to market ourselves as a technology company. We're advanced, and, you know, our team is out there getting invoices on the handheld. Our customers are signing on the handheld, and within a few seconds of hitting done on the handheld, the invoice is emailed to the customer, which is a pretty cool feature. So I mean, before the driver's back on his truck, they already have the invoice in their inbox. And Bill, like you said, it was a lot easier to train on a app-based software and handheld, just because, I mean, everyone has, for the most part, a smartphone. It's just really a really easier way for us to run things, because we have routes that they go out and do office coffee service, they do vending and markets all on the same route, and have everything on one handheld. We're only training that driver on one type of software versus three, which really helps for us to focus on what's needed, which is train them on being a customer service rep versus a handheld specialist.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So here's my other question for you when we start to look at this. You said you market yourself as a technology company. So, you know, my thought is, obviously, when you're going out to, you know, try to sell a new location or whatnot, I'm assuming that this is kind of at the forefront of what you're selling. You're selling, obviously, your products and your team and your organization and what you've done, but you're also selling that, you know what, we can work with you no matter what you're looking to do, right? You're looking to do vending, markets, OCS, you're doing water, whatever it is, we can do that with our software. Is that something that you're pushing when you're out there?
What I mean by technology company is just the fact that, you know, we are a service-based business, but we go out and market ourselves as we adopt technology to make us more efficient, to keep costs out of our business, to keep our customers' costs down as well. So really, we're out there selling the fact that we push the technology we utilize, the software we have to make us as efficient as possible so we're not incurring any additional costs.
Makes sense. Great. So the next one we want to look at, again, I spoke about this at the beginning in, let's see if it's coming through here, in my overview, is the hosted server, right? So, you know, in my role for USAT Technologies, I mean, I go all over the country and I visit, you know, just fantastic companies in this convenience service industry, right? Market, vending, OCS, and they all, almost all of them have a great handle on what they're doing as a business and how to run their business. But one thing that they maybe don't have a great handle on because it's not their business is IT, right? They're not IT people, they're business people, right? So what they want, or what you would want for your software platform, would be let your software provider handle it, right? You know, there's cloud-based services out there. You don't have to have a server on-prem that you got to deal with. There's less upfront costs on that, cheaper maintenance, you know, faster runtime and reporting. You know, with runtime and reporting, we're talking about, you know, reports that take seconds instead of maybe up to hours at times, right? And then a painless update process. You know, when this updates, it updates all together, right? So as one customer gets an update, all customers get an update. You don't have to worry about what version you're on. Everybody's on the same version. That's a key with a cloud-hosted software provider. So Duncan, I got to ask you this question. Before you had a cloud-hosted provider, did you ever use an on-prem server, and how was that, your experience with that?
Yeah, we did have a on-premise server for a while, and we definitely like the way that things work now with a cloud-based server. And what I mean by that is that before, with updates, you know, you had to make sure all handhelds were done for the day. They had all the information downloaded. Everyone was logged out of the database before we could ever do an update. And today, you know, updates are just done overnight. We don't have to worry about organizing our team. You know, we're a company that has 4 branches, and to organize 4 branches of people was a huge task in itself. So definitely very nice to be able to just have updates happen without having to organize them on our end. The other thing we like about the cloud-based server is that for our team that does scheduling or any work in our database, in our operating system, they can do it anywhere. They don't have to be in the office to call our clients and schedule routes, to add to orders. They can do it from anywhere they want as long as there's internet. So that's also another helpful feature we have for efficiencies with having the cloud-based server.
Great. It's great stuff. All right, I think this next slide is more of a meat and potatoes type slide, right? Where we actually want to show you actually how you get orders out. You want to make sure your customers can order easily. You want to make sure then once you get those orders, you want to make sure your software provider allows you an easy way to send those to your customer, either, you know, off of the truck, you know, picking from the warehouse, flexibility for your route service providers to maybe make some decisions in the field if you'd like them to as well with OCS. So you want to take the orders the way your customers want to make the orders, right? So that's very important. No matter how you train, I've been out of the you know, this business for about 6 years now, but I do recall we always wanted our customers maybe to order a certain way, and I think in those days it might have been more of an email or something like that. But it's hard to train all customers to do it all the same way. Now, you might get 90% of them, you know, at this point, maybe doing, you know, email or even web orders, but there's still gonna be the ones that pop in. There's gonna be the ones that make phone calls. You want to make sure you have the ability, or your software has the ability to manage that, right? So the key is to make sure that you get those orders, right? That's the key to really get things going. And you want to provide a great customer experience for those customers that want to order from you. You want to make it easy. Duncan, do you have people making orders all different ways, or how are people ordering through you today at All Star Services?
Yeah, our customers order via the online portal. They order over the phone. They email, and we also have what we call a blank invoice or off truck invoice, where our drivers keep stock on the truck and they drive up and fill back the par. So the flexibility is there for us, and we really we make suggestions on how our customers should order, but at the end of the day, it's really up to them on how they want to order.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I'm sure there's ways you would rather have it done, but you know, the customer is always right, as they say, right? The customer is the customer, and you want to make sure they can make you know, they can create an order the way they want to create an order. That makes a lot of sense. And then the big thing for our OCS, go back one here. I'm going too fast here for you guys. Sorry about that. All right, so the big thing here is in this convenience services business, a lot of operators are running many different businesses, right? They're running their OCS, they're running their vending, they're running markets, they're running hybrids of all of that. We want to make sure when you're choosing a software provider that they have the ability to handle all these verticals, okay? So, a few of these are combined hybrid routes, right? So you could have a route where maybe all your OCS routes are OCS routes, or vending, and markets, but you want the ability to have hybrid routes. Duncan, do you offer hybrid routes as a company today, and how do you guys do routing?
Yeah, we do have several dedicated office coffee services routes, but we also have majority of our routes that will do markets, vending, and office coffee all off the same truck. And like I mentioned earlier, of having all the information on one handheld, it really makes life a lot easier for us when we're training our employees, and it keeps things really consistent. On top of that, for back end for our office, we're training our office staff on one database, one software, and makes that a little easier as well. And then it also puts all the financial information of a customer. If they have a market, they have vending machines, they have office coffee delivery, and even water cooler or other machine rentals, it puts all that financial information into one report, one database. You're not running multiple reports and cutting and pasting and using Excel. It's all right there in Seed's database.
Yeah. So, as I say, I do visit many customers throughout the country, and I think one of the biggest pain points that I see is when they're running their lines of business through separate software programs, right? Where they're using maybe a little bit of an antiquated program to run their OCS business, but maybe they're running an updated one or a more updated one for another piece of their business. And when they're picking or they're doing other things, it just kind of segments out the business, right? Like you said, when you're training a route, a driver on a route and how to do a route, and you got to train them through 3 or 4 different ways. It's a nightmare, right? Imagine sending, and I'm sure people do it here on this call, but you're sending a driver out with, maybe you do have a mobile app for a portion of your business, but you have maybe a pen and paper for another piece of the business, or a big bulky handheld for another piece. It's just, I assume it's difficult to manage those pieces. Was there ever a time when you had to manage multiple through your organization, or were you all pretty much when you made the change, you made the change?
No, we were managing multiple for a while. I mean, it makes things difficult. That's why I appreciate how easy it is now to run a financial picture of a customer versus how hard it was in the past. On top of that, we not only had, different segments of our business being operated in different platforms, but also individual segments like markets. We had multiple market providers, so you're pulling just reports from everywhere to try to get a financial picture of your business. So it makes life a lot easier now.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's it for me and Duncan for a little while here on this webinar, and you're gonna hear from us at the end of it here, but we're gonna switch this over now to Jane to do an expert seed delivery demo. She's gonna show you some different parts of what we spoke about today, and how that actually works in the software. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Bill. Adrian, are you gonna make me presenter? Okay. Perfect.
I am. You should see it now.
All right. So everyone should be seeing my screen now. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here and get this opportunity to showcase what product and our development team has been working on in the last couple of years. I'm going to show you what it's going to be for your employees, whether you're a driver or you're a back office, to manage your delivery processes in Seed. As Duncan and Bill kept stressing that one of the biggest issues with complexities with doing delivery is that every customer is different and customer is always right. So you want to make sure you tailor to each of your customer. So Seed Delivery was really built to make sure you're able to do that, and you're able to do that in a streamlined, automated way, rather than a very manual way, maintaining a lot of notes and doing a lot of customizations outside of Seed. If you're already familiar with vending, then Seed Delivery will be a piece of cake for you. But at the same time, if you're coming from a different industry, or you're training an employee who used to work for a different industry, it is pretty intuitive in terms of setup. So similar to vending, you will have your customers. Customers can have one or multiple locations, and then each location, as in this example, can have multiple delivery points. Usually that would be floors within the building or different areas of the building where you have equipment and where you drop off product. So the way you would do manage each account, you would have a set of configurations that you maintain at the customer, or you can even make it more specific at the location level. Depending on what your contract looks like with a customer, you would configure pricing plan, you would agree on how often on your schedule, how often you're going to come back to that place, or if you would only come back when you have an order, or if you take responsibility for servicing that location and you are in charge of how many times you need to come back, as long as the kitchen is stocked. You would also agree on the payment terms, and we allow you to configure those. We give you a lot of options for configuring those, and there is also an option of setting up an early payment discount. This is one of the incentives to actually getting paid faster, which is not a bad thing when you're running a large delivery operation. You can also decide, depending on what the customer's needs, how you're going to be invoicing them. Do they want a single invoice for all the deliveries? And as Duncan was saying, maybe they want a single invoice for all the deliveries plus any monthly rental fees that you're charging them. So we're making that possible with Seed Delivery. You can also customize the invoice period. If you say servicing a large account and they want a single summary of everything that was delivered for the month, we can support that. Otherwise, if this is a smaller customer and they want invoice for each day of service, you can do that, and anything in between. At the same time, similar to vending, you're able to configure your taxes and also define whether you want any tax breakdown to show on the invoice or not. Say if you have some tax exempt products, you're able to showcase that you're not charging tax for those. So this is how location and customer setup looks like. From here, if we look at I already have a schedule pulled up, at the scheduling, you see that it's very similar to vending. So it allows you to essentially start running combined hybrid routes with no training, as was mentioned before. So in this case, I have OCS only route, and I can see this is a location, and this location has 3 delivery points. While scheduling, I can preview each one of them and see that, okay, this one has an order. This one has an order as well. However, this one, maybe the customer sent in the order and we've never entered in Seed, or I need to give them a call, a reminder to place an order. That being said, there are multiple ways you can create orders in Seed to make sure that whatever your customer prefers to do, it's not labor intensive for them, and it's not seen as an extra overhead for a customer to manage a relationship with you. So in this case, if this customer generally sends you the order over the email, you would enter it here. You can set up a template that would make the data entry process much more faster. You can also use Excel import to import any template that you maybe send to the customer over the email. If the customer prefers to do it online, you can set them up as with a web ordering access. Essentially, you can maintain as many customers as you need in here, and you can have flexibility into defining how the presentation of the web ordering module going to look like for them, and you can also customize some of the invoice information that you prefer to show or not to show to them. Say if you don't want the customers to view the payment status of the invoice, you can hide it. You can also define whether you want to send order confirmation to this user, to the customer or not. I'm going to give you a glimpse of what the web ordering portal looks like. It was designed with two ideas in mind. One, this is something that operator is going to share with their customers, so it has to be very easy to use, that zero overhead on a customer side to master this. And two, if you're using a pre-sale model, potentially you would be setting up your account managers with access to this portal, so that when they're on site on their tablet, they're able to pull this up and quickly build an order while they are on site. So say for this location, let's see, they have an order template set up, so it's going to be a piece of cake for me. Based on what I see in the kitchen, I can adjust the quantity. I can also add, say, the missing stir sticks in here. Let's set them up with some stir sticks. Looks good. So once I save this order, whoever manages your back office, they'll be able to see it in the orders, in the order screen. So for every order, we trace how you received it, and if it's a web order, you need to manually approve it. Especially if generally you limit to when the customer can place an order for when you can deliver it. So say if you're making it very flexible and the customer can place an order for any day, like for example, I think with this customer, they can pretty much, these ones are going on a cadence, but you get to approve. If you're not planning to go to that vacation, to that location on that given day, then you would need to contact the customer and you would not approve this order. Otherwise, I'm gonna approve all of them. And then when I go back to my scheduling screen, essentially I can preview each one. If I'm scared, I can say, okay, this one has an order already attached. This one doesn't, but maybe this is a blank account, similar to what Duncan was saying. You're just going to send the driver with the inventory on a truck, and they're going to build an order in a handheld. So once I feel like I'm done, I just exactly same flow as you would use for vending. I would essentially create a pre-pick. We allow you to set up a pick line for delivery as well. It works differently from vending in terms of you would probably pick in bulk, and then the driver would compile what they need to take inside the building on the truck. And they can use this printout that has essentially location, delivery point, and everything that needs to be dropped off at that delivery point that the driver will see in their handheld, as well as always a good idea to print this for them. So now the most nerve-wracking moment of this presentation, I'm gonna show you what the driver's handheld gonna look like. Let's see. All right, it got disconnected. Bear with me for a second. I'm gonna connect my iPad here. All right, that went well. So this is what the route looks like for the driver. So they can only see locations that are on their route, B, that you've scheduled. Say I'm picking the first location. When they click on an order, they see that order has already been created for this customer. So they just need to take whatever they need to fulfill this order from the truck. And then say they drop off the Starbucks coffee, and then for whatever reason they're missing some of the creamer. They can always adjust the quantity and confirm that it's picked. They can also, in case the customer says, oh, we also need some stir sticks in here, or some different coffee. In case they have inventory on the truck, they can always update the order and select that item. At the same time, they would generate the invoice. And then there are a couple of options here. Depending on how you train your driver to do it and on what your customer prefer, some customers would like to sign off for each delivery. Essentially, every floor you drop off the product, you would collect a signature. But generally what they want is there is a single office manager who's going to sign at the end, and they're going to sign for all the deliveries you do at this location. So in this case, there is only one delivery point that was serviced. Actually, no, there are multiple ones. So I could collect a signature by going to invoice and sign it here. Or I could say, no, I actually need to service more more delivery points at this location. So in that case, I can say that I'm going to capture signature later. But generally, once they, I'm going to go ahead and actually sign it and collect a single signature for location. This was just one delivery. Otherwise, you would be able to preview all of them here. Oh, there's some that I already serviced. So there were 2 deliveries in here, and I would collect a single signature for them. That signature you'll be able to, if you want to, you'll be able to print a timestamp for it for each delivery on the invoice, so that the customer wouldn't have any questions around when each delivery happened. And likewise, they would proceed with the next location, service the drop off the product, generate invoice, collect a signature. The beautiful thing is that you don't have to wait until the end of the day to sync the application with the back office. And that's something that really helps you in terms of getting an idea of how the route is going, previewing the invoices, and getting on following up on those invoices instantly. Once, depending on how the customer is set up, if they prefer to receive invoice email, once I provide a signature here and the driver says done, then we're going to trigger to send them an invoice. In case there are customers who want to get printed invoice, then that can be done from seed, and I'll show you how once the driver has collected the signature and finished the day. But otherwise, you're able to see that you've serviced 3 assets and they've uploaded, meaning the person in the office can already see these invoice on their computer. They don't need to wait until the end of the day. Now I'm gonna switch back onto, if I figure out how to hide it without disconnecting. Perfect. Now I'm gonna go to the most fun part. Is actually we've collected the orders, we've scheduled the locations, we have we sent out the driver to service them. It's all good. Now we need to get people to pay us for this. And that's usually, as mentioned prior by Bill and Duncan, that's usually something that's very manual, requires a lot of sometimes interaction with the customer, a lot of notes, generally can be a lot of paperwork. We try to minimize it for you to essentially work between two screens in seed delivery. First would be your dashboard, where you can see, based on the time frame you set, all the invoices that were created during this time frame. You can see the status of that invoice, and generally you will have open invoices, which means that this is a customer that I'm going to invoice at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, or at the end of the month. So what Seed will do, we will automatically compile all the deliveries you're making into into this master invoice for you. And then on this date, this invoice will close automatically, and we will open up a new one for January, because we know that this customer is set to be invoiced monthly. You also have all the flexibility to close this invoice early if you need to during the holidays, and I'll show you how in a second. You will also have invoices that are ready to review. So this is an example of invoice that has already closed. We're not going to add more deliveries to it because they're set up to be invoiced by location. We've already serviced this location at the handheld. There are 2 deliveries happened. We have closed this invoice for you. So if this is a master invoice, we rely on your back office to essentially review the invoice, make sure all deliveries that you intended are included on this invoice, and then manually trigger sending this invoice or printing this invoice. Moving forward, I'm planning to add ability for you to bulk send invoices, or to even, if you're comfortable for certain customers, allow for automatic sending of the master invoice at the end of invoice period. Once invoice was delivered for the customer, we start tracking if that invoice has been paid, and if it hasn't been paid or has been partially paid, you will start seeing the outcomes of that on the aging report. So here you're able to see the status. You're also able to see send status. So if the invoice was successfully sent, you'll see that it goes into unpaid mode. If the invoice, and then this invoice, for example, it failed to send, so you can always go into invoice details and essentially try to figure out why it wasn't sent successfully. Generally, it requires you to contact the customer and get an updated email from them. But the good thing is that you can proactively monitor what's happening here. Couple of other things that you can do from this page. You can say that this is an example of the master invoice. The first section is always a cumulative of everything that was delivered to this customer, and then the delivery details print all the information that you will need in case the customer has questions around deliveries, when the product was dropped off, and what exactly was delivered, like a breakdown of this summary. And when you print it to PDF, it essentially prints on multiple pages. So you would see the first page would be the actual master invoice, master summary of everything that this customer received from you. And then the consecutive pages would be the details. And then it's up to you whether you want to share the details with the customer, or you just want to send them the master version and go from there. You also has a number of ways to edit master invoice. You can remove deliveries from it, and you can add deliveries to it. So if you're trying to get paid, this would be the page that you need to monitor. Another thing would be the aging invoice, aging report. That's the one that Bill and Duncan kept coming back to, essentially having all the information you need in one place. And especially if you have a person who schedules and a person who is managing AR as the same person, they have all the information, all the contacts they need to make decisions, because they can see the age of the invoice here. They can also see the terms, so they can, even though invoice has aged, they can see if they actually have balance out of terms, or even though it's aged, it's still not out of terms. This was actually one of the improvements that we made recently, and it was suggested by Duncan's team. You can view all the unpaid invoices, and you can add payment from this page as well. So essentially, when we're talking about getting paid, it's just 2 screens: invoice dashboard and aging report. Let's see how I'm doing here on time, because I have a feeling that we need some time for the Q&A. So I'm going to pass it to Adrian now.
Awesome. Hey, Jane, thanks a bunch. This was really fantastic. I think you went through a ton of cool stuff that we talked about during the presentation, and showing how it really comes to life.
Awesome.
Right.
Apologies, I got too excited and basically used a lot of Q&A time, but hope we got some questions.
Oh, absolutely. This is fantastic. All right, Bill, you want to pick it back up to do the key takeaways?
Sure. That was Jane. That was great. I think that probably answered maybe a lot of questions that people may have too. So that's really good to get through that and to really show it. All right. So some of the key takeaways from this presentation. Obviously we talked about paperless invoices and incentives to get paid faster. One thing Jane actually said in that demo, which I thought was really neat, was you could do the capture a signature later piece, which is a cool feature, and then also that timestamp, right? Knowing where your employees are and what they're doing out there in the field. Consolidate invoices when possible. Like we said earlier, and like Duncan talked about, this master invoice project was a big project for us to put together to really listen to our customers' needs and make their lives easier. Pick a handheld solution. Go fast there. That makes your driver better. So Duncan spoke about it, and I spoke about it a little bit, and it's really, you want to have a solution that's easily trainable for your driver. You want to make sure it's cost effective, right? So when we're talking about making more money, obviously savings never hurt, right? So that's also another piece to make your driver act, so he's smiling at customers and not worried about his handheld all the time, right? Cloud-based management software. And again, you want to make sure your provider has that. And really, Jane kind of had a little takeaway there, and it was towards the end of that conversation where she talked about something she's planning to do in the near future, right? So to me, you want to make sure your provider has a release schedule and is listening to the current customers, right? And they're reacting to industry trends to update products, right? So you want to make sure it's on a continuous managed schedule. So you want to make sure your provider has that. They can talk about it when they're with you, and it's really an important piece. Everything's updating all the time. You want to make sure your software does as well, and you want to make sure it's easy for you. And then stay nimble. Duncan, he could speak about this probably more than I can, but you want to have flexible pre-picking and order collection. Very, very important. And a bonus would be to be able to integrate your business management software as well. Okay, so that's my key takeaways at the end of this. Duncan, did you want to end with anything, a little tidbit before we take questions?
No, Bill, I think you did a great job covering everything that C Delivery has to offer and everything we utilize. I don't really have anything to add. So thank you very much, though.
Yeah, Duncan, thank you for being on this. All right, Adrian, I guess to you for Q&A.
All right, sounds good. Cool. Well, first off, yeah, huge thank you for all three of our presenters, Bill, Jane, and Duncan, for leading a great presentation. I think you guys went through a ton of awesome content, both from just talking about the tips, actually seeing what's going on in the real product. Okay, so we're jumping into questions now. I'm pulling up some of the stuff that you guys posted into the sidebar. We will try to go up to the edge of the time and try to answer as much as possible. But if we don't get to your questions, we'll shoot an answer back on email. So don't worry in case we don't get to it. We'll get you guys an answer. So the first one up that we saw come in was, I think this is going to be towards Duncan, but how do you decide to have a hybrid route versus a route that's specifically just for delivery?
It really depends on business needs, what's going on with the client, and distance that the customers are away from your location. For us, if we're out to travel long distances, we'll try to do as much hybrid as possible, so we're not doubling on mileage. And also, if there's specialty machines where it need a lot more attention, cleaning, daily maintenance, filter changes, that type of stuff, we might be on a dedicated route, so that driver's trained specifically on those types of machines.
Awesome. Sounds great. All right, moving right along. How can you make sure deliveries that are marked as complete are actually done or done right?
That
so I think either Bill or
well?
I can either be Bill or Duncan, whoever wants to jump in.
Duncan, you got that one, or you want me to take it?
Sure. I think it's very similar to now. You're relying on, there's some level of trust with your driver, and if there are mistakes being made, is following up and going down a typical corrective action plan. I really think is the best way to address that.
Yeah, and I think another piece of that the question kind of asked, I believe, if I heard that correctly, was is it if the invoice is sent, Adrian, do we know how it got there? We know if it got there or not? Is that a question? Is that a piece of it or no?
I think it's more about, I think if you got the invoice, the delivery is marked as done within the product. How do you make sure everything's like set up correctly or done properly? That you want it to see.
Yeah, and on that invoice,
what you can
yeah,
do is, sorry, you can actually, if it's just a question of if the driver is doing the right thing and like properly organizing the kitchen, you can always get the driver to take a picture once they're done service, similarly for how we do it with vending. Once they finish servicing the machine, they can take a picture. Same with the delivery point. You can take a picture and upload it through the app, so that the account manager can see it in Eon. Otherwise, I feel like delivery is also such a sensitive thing. If the driver is not doing the job, like you're probably gonna hear pretty fast that something is not right. But like forcing the driver to take a picture would be one of the things, one of the good practices. We generally prefer not to like enforce that in an app, because sometimes you service locations where they would not be allowed to take pictures, but but the option is always there. It's not required. It's optional if the driver wants to snap a picture at the end.
Right. The operator can make that one of their, processes, right? Best practice,
Yeah.
when they're actually out there doing it. Sure.
Or like, I don't know, encourage the driver to do it by some incentives.
Awesome. I think that was a good answer. Next question, can you add product from the truck to an order through the app during a route? I mean, I can answer that just from watching Jane, you go through the product. Seems like the answer is yes. Am I correct?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, +1 for me. I got one.
Yeah. I mean, as long as that product is on the pricing list. Yeah, as long as that product is on the pricing list for that customer, yeah, it will be all loaded in the handheld. The driver has full access to the catalog available to the customer to build an order.
Very cool. Awesome. Here's another question. I think this is going right to Duncan, but what percentage of OCS pantry sales are going through online or web orders versus another method?
We're about, I'd say, 20 to 25% online ordering right now. We've done a really good job of pushing our customers to utilize the portal, because what it does when they order online, it automatically schedules that delivery point on its next scheduled day. So if the delivery day is Thursday, for example, and someone goes online and orders on a Monday, it'll schedule the product needed for Thursday. And all we do is go in and basically our scheduler approves the order and it gets picked and it's on its way. So it cuts down on the labor of entering the order. We feel like it's a very accurate way to do it, and we really like the online portal quite a bit.
Very cool. Thanks, Duncan. And another question on the online orders, but do you have a minimum in place for orders that are placed online, minimum quantity or types of product?
We have a minimum delivery, and our minimum is $100 to stop the truck. So if anyone's under $100, they get charged a delivery fee.
Got it.
It's online, call ahead, anything. We have a minimum delivery.
Very cool. All right, next up, this is one on roll-up invoicing. So I think Bill or Janie might be able to handle this. But what if on a rolled-up invoice, there's an invoice that does not get closed or signed? How does that affect the total invoice, and how does that work in the app or in the product?
So the signature, oh, can you hear me okay? Because it would not unmute for some reason. So the signature has nothing to do with whether the invoice created or gets added to the master invoice. So essentially what happens is the driver can, depending on how you set it, the driver can bypass the signature and just upload the invoice back into Seed. It will show up on the master invoice. The concept of closing and opening invoice, it applies more to how many, like for what time frame we're gonna keep adding deliveries to this invoice. And then you can adjust that time frame due to holidays, weekends, or any other reasons, like you can make it custom. But basically, regardless whether the driver collects the signature, edits the invoice, once they mark the order as delivered. You can do it in seat, or if the driver does it in a handheld, when they say that they're done servicing a location, whether they collect the signature or not, the invoice gets created, it gets uploaded to Seed, and it gets added to the master invoice. If later on you find out, well, it was a mistake, they actually did not drop off the product there, you can always remove it from the master invoice and mark that invoice as undelivered. Then it will turn it back into the order.
Got
Hope
it.
that
Thanks,
answered
Jane.
the question.
So one more question, and also this is up to Duncan, but how long did it take to implement the product? And I think in the case they mean Seed delivery.
Oh, you know, I believe we did a export import through Excel. I mean, it took a couple weeks, maybe a month for us to really be up and running with, you know, getting everything inputted, drivers trained. You know, our drivers were using a handheld before, but not the same type of handheld like we mentioned earlier. So there's a little bit of training there, but not a lot, because we were already using the Seed platform with the rest of our business.
Awesome. Yeah. So it wasn't like a pretty drawn out thing. It was pretty streamlined, straightforward.
Yeah.
Not to put words in your mouth, but you know.
From the team to help us get set up too. So it went pretty smooth. It was not a major undertaking.
Awesome. Great to hear. Well, I know there's a few questions that we didn't get to unanswered, but we are a little bit over the time, and I want to make sure we're considerate of our presenters' time here. So I think that's a great place to end it. Thank you guys again for being a part of the presentation. Obviously, a big thanks to everyone that joined us today, and hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. In case you're interested in rewatching or sharing with somebody else, we will be sending out the replay of the webinar later this week in the next 48 hours. So keep an eye out for your email. It'll go to the email of whatever you registered with. And I think that's a great place to end it. So until next time, everyone have a great week. Have a great holiday coming up. And I hope to see you again in our next webinar.